As I am sure the majority of you know, we are huge fans of The Lord of the Rings here at Explore. So obviously in 2002, when the video game was released to tie in with the release of the sequel movie in the trilogy, The Two Towers, we played it. A lot. As well as its sequel, Return of the King. But we'll get to that in another video. Hopefully. Now, while this game is obviously going to look and feel extremely outdated, because, well, it's old, we couldn't resist the nostalgic urge to go back through it and share our thoughts. So let's get into it. So the first thing to point out is that although the game is named after the second part of the Lord of the Rings story, The Two Towers, it actually captures elements from the first movie as well. In fact, about half of the game is just made up of levels based on the first film. The opening level, the one that introduces you to the gameplay mechanics, is actually set during the Battle of the Last Alliance, playing as Isildur, alongside Elrond fighting off orcs of Mordor. A great way to really sink your teeth into the combat mechanics. I had also forgotten how cool it is seeing cutscenes from the movie slowly fade into the gameplay cutscenes. Now, while the graphical capabilities at this point in time were fairly limited, it's still pretty cool, and I can't help but imagine just how cool it would look if this game was remade today. It would look practically seamless. We can dream, right?
You have my sword. And you have my bow.
And my axe.
So, once the prologue section has been completed, you can play as the game's main three characters, Aragorn, Legolas or Gimli, who each have individual skill sets and move lists. The game itself supplies players with a good set of upgradable attacks that are all very easy to use. There is a nice variety of quick attacks and strong attacks, and it places a big emphasis on combos, rewarding players by filling up an on-screen meter. The more enemies that you concurrently strike, the higher the meter will go, and in turn will build the character's experience level. The more experience you earn, the more moves you can purchase to improve your character. This reward system, that is based around continuously dishing out combos, works really well at keeping the game fast-paced, and the variety of enemy types means that the same combos don't always work, so it keeps the gameplay fresh. There is also, of course, range play. Legolas and Aragorn are obviously armed with bows and arrows, whereas Gimli has throwing axes. I think the thing that the game benefits from the most is this sort of easy to learn but hard to master style of gameplay, which I honestly feel is something that is lacking from more modern game releases. Most games these days tend to either be fairly simple or have a very steep learning curve. But that may just be me trying to adapt to modern games while grasping to these nostalgic games that I still love in my older age. One of the biggest shocks to me when going back to this game was the sound quality.
That should slow them.
Not only does the game lend the score from the movie trilogy, composed by the legendary Howard Shore, which needs no description, it's a masterpiece, but also the majority of the cast reprise their roles to voice the characters in the game, and it just adds that extra layer of authenticity.
They have fallen back. It is over for now.
But the main impressive factor, at least to me, was the sound effects. They would sound at home in any Hollywood picture. Amazing quality and layering and depth by the sound team. Now, while this game is fairly linear in its approach, you have objectives on each level, and you must clear what sometimes seems like a never-ending horde of enemies each level, but the game keeps it varied by adding the odd boss battle, which are always fairly enjoyable. Overall, the game is quite short as a single playthrough, as most players will probably be able to get through it in under 5 hours. But the ability to go back through it again as one of the other characters is very appealing. And in this instance, I actually think keeping the game itself quite short works in its favour. If this was a 20 to 30 hour game, I imagine gameplay would get pretty stale before long. But by the time I got to the end of this, a part of me wanted to restart it straight away with a new character. And you're also given the opportunity to go back to previous levels and attempt to improve upon your past performances, which is always something the perfectionist in me wants to do. Finally then, the game does have a fair amount of unlockable content to discover, including a survival mode and video interviews with the cast of the movie, which are great fun. So while the game is short, fans of The Lord of the Rings have tons to go back for. It does not hold up graphically of course, but it's certainly impressive for its time, especially with the number of interactive enemies that appear on screen at once. And the auto camera angle change was often annoying, but overall it gave the game quite a cinematic feel. In the end, I thoroughly enjoyed my playthrough. It's a fairly standard hack and slash game that's easy to play and hard to master, adding to its replayability. Fans of the Lord of the Rings franchise loved it upon its release, and to be honest, if you can deal with older graphics, you will love it now, as I did. It has made me extremely excited to go back and play through The Return of the King as well, if that is something you guys would like to see. Please let us know in the comments down below if you'd like to see that. Although, to be honest, I'm probably going to do it anyway for my own enjoyment. So if anyone of any influence in the gaming industry happens to be listening to this little video, I am begging you for a remake of these games. Everything else is getting remade these days, so why not jump on the bandwagon and redo these classics? Okay guys, so that brings us to the end of this look back at The Lord of the Rings The Two Towers game. What do you guys think about this? Looking back at it, does it still hold up? Do you think you would still enjoy playing through it today? Let us know in the comments down below. And don't forget, if you are fans of the History of Middle-earth YouTube channel, please don't forget that the channel has rebranded to History of the Ages. Hopefully you guys choose to support the channel through this transition. It's still the exact same content, it's just a different name. Anyway, I'm going to go and replay The Two Towers with Legolas. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time on Explore.